Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with my review of WWE's Extreme Rules 2022. Bray Wyatt finally came back after months of speculation, and yeah, some other stuff happened too. Let's begin with the good old-fashioned Donnybrook six-man tag match as the Brawling Brutes took on Imperium. This is the first match of the show, and it was already one of the better ones of the night. Philadelphia loves Imperium, they love the Brawling Brutes, and also when they're making their entrances, we get a bit of an interruption with the latest White Rabbit video, and of course all the speculation that has been following that. I will say I haven't had a chance to talk about it much on the channel, but I will just say the White Rabbit videos, the QR codes, all that stuff is just some absolute brilliant marketing and just a way to get everyone talking about it. Yeah, we all know where it's going, but it's just that chase, and you're trying to look at the clues and maybe try and psych yourself out. Is it really this? Maybe it's, always leave a thought in your mind for something else. But either way, the White Rabbit stuff's been brilliant. I love how they've done that and incorporated it into the programming, social media, it's everywhere. Really smart stuff. It's a big brawl from the get-go. At times there are moments where I feel the match is so chaotic, the cameramen have a hard time trying to figure out where to go. There's some bad cuts early on, but they shake that off pretty quickly here. There's a moment where Sheamus is beat down 3-on-1, and like the chops Gunther is hitting Sheamus with look so ridiculous. Then there's a moment where Butch is kind of in a 3-on-1 situation. He gets the crap kicked out of him. Sheamus comes back after getting laid out by the bar. He lays out Giovanni Vinci, Ludwig Kaiser. We get that face off with he and Gunther again, and this rivalry is tremendous, and the crowd is just alive for it. The Philadelphia crowd was definitely on point here, and really I think elevated the whole show as a matter of fact. There's a whole lot of oak barrels on the outside of the ring. They're all stacked one on top of the other, and the whole time I'm thinking, when is somebody going to get thrown into that pile and cause this giant avalanche of barrels? But instead, Butch does a moonsault off the top of those things. Gunther getting his from Ridge and Butch. Sheamus cracking a shillelagh over Gunther's damn head. Lots of shillelagh beating here. There's the Celtic cross through the announce table. Bro kick to Vinci by Sheamus, and the Brawling Brutes win. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. What a fight. What a battle. I mean, I talked at the Clash at the Castle review how much I loved the Gunther-Sheamus matchup there. Same thing can be said about their match on Smackdown the night before this show, and this is just a continuation of that rivalry involving like the friends and everything. This was a great chapter in that story, and I think everyone really brought it. It just delivered such a hard-hitting match. I love this thing. Great, like I said, great continuation of the angle, and it feels like Sheamus is poised to maybe eventually get the Intercontinental belt from Gunther, but this is, again, a great stop on the road. The Miz is backstage. He's getting all jazzed for his birthday celebration on Monday, but then he's stopped mid-sentence by Gritty, the mascot for the Philadelphia Flyers. He wants to give Miz a shirt, but Miz stomps on it. Oh, he did it now. He gone and made a big mistake. Up next, an Extreme Rules match for the Smackdown Women's Championship as Liv Morgan defends against Ronda Rousey, who she's already beaten twice this year. By the way, I really appreciated Ronda's entrance attire, the pink gi, which they mentioned was a reference to the late great judo Jean LaBelle, and also Corey pointing out that her actual ring attire has some They Live references on it, kind of a Roddy Piper thing. Speaking of which, I'm reviewing They Live this week on the channel, so stay tuned for that on Wednesday. Liv's getting worked over early on here, but she's able to blast Ronda in the face with a fire extinguisher. Ronda thwacking Liv with Liv's own baseball bat, but Liv comes back with some shots of her own. There's a distraction when Ronda throws the gi in Liv's face, and apparently this debilitates her and just attacks her central nervous system to the point where she can't recover in time for Ronda to get the black belt that she had and start attacking Liv with it. There's a bunch of points in this match where they try and have these spots with weapons or items and stuff, and it just doesn't work for whatever reason or another. Liv wedging a chair into the corner at one point, but it falls out to the spot they're trying to do in the corner. Doesn't look nearly as good. Also, the baseball bat they're using, man, if that bat was not clearly made of rubber, those shots would show like they hurt, but there's a lot of Lance Storm-like attacks here with the bat and the chair. Just very weak stuff. We do get a Van Morganator, in Corey Graves' words, with the chair there in a 2 count. Ronda's on a table. Liv hits the big top rope senton, shades of what she did a couple weeks ago to Lacey Evans. They're having a tussle over the armbar. Ronda transitions into a bicep crusher. Liv looks to be just loving where she is right now, though. She passes out and the referee calls the match. Ronda wins and regains the SmackDown Women's title. I'm going to give it 1.5 stars out of 5. I thought this match was kind of hard to get through. There were a couple of moments that I liked. I think the fire extinguisher spot worked great. The table spot was fine. But any other time it seemed they tried to use a weapon or environment in their matchup, it just like didn't work out or didn't look good. And I think that the match suffered for it as a result. As for Liv Morgan, her title reign has ended. I think her championship reign here was somewhat of a mixed bag. Obviously, I think the chase for a babyface is going to be a lot more compelling than the reign itself, 9 times out of 10. I think Liv's chase was really interesting, and the way she cashed in at Money in the Bank was fine. But when you have a plucky underdog and they're a champion, and you continue to make them a plucky underdog, the whole underdog thing doesn't really work when they're the champion. It's happened so many times before, and we got that here from Morgan, especially in the thing with Ronda Rousey. She was constantly being portrayed as out of her depth and flukish and lucky, and it's just like, how do you build a character? How do you build a strong hero when you keep doing that, and then she ultimately loses to the person she won in these flukes with? On we go to the strap match as Karrion Kross, whose full head of hair deeply confuses me, takes on Drew McIntyre. This is a match that actually begun unofficially before the bell rang. These two are brawling around outside, in through the crowd for the first couple of minutes of this thing. Drew slamming Karrion back first onto the apron before the bell rings. Match finally begins, and Kross is just going after Drew's shoulder repeatedly in this thing, like he did the previous night on SmackDown. Kross driving Drew face first in the announce table, and in doing so taking his own table bump. Many strap smacks here. Drews up and fights back. More strap smacks. Drew is the future shock, goes for the Claymore, but Scarlett gets in his way and sprays him with a shitload of pepper spray. That allows Kross to hit the Kross hammer to win the match here. And at this point, shouldn't everyone in the ring be selling the pepper spray? Because there was a lot of it, and I feel like even if you're near the pepper spray, you're going to be feeling that. This match just kind of felt there for me. I mean, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't great either. I felt they might have been hampered by the limitations of the strap stipulation. I felt that, the match, you could have gone a little longer with it. I felt, take some time from a match we're going to get later in this show and maybe transplant it onto this one to build more of a story and more depth. But it was a fight, but not nearly as chaotic and fun as the Donnybrook we had in the opener. Backstage, The Miz on the phone with Maurice when Gritty shows up again and gives him some guff. On we go now to the ladder match for the Raw Women's Championship as Bianca Belair takes on Bayley. Hey, Triple B. Nikita Lyons from NXT watching from the front row. The action is fast and furious as we get going here. Bayley trying to slingshot Bianca into a ladder, but she just lands on it and climbs back into the ring. Belair with a great handspring into a moonsault onto Bayley, who's on the ladder. Dueling chants for Bianca and Bayley here. The fans are going to love Bayley no matter what, even though she's a heel. People like Bayley, just kind of indeterminate of if she's a face or a heel. She's just that good of a performer. Bayley with a big sunset flip into a ladder, then a big diving elbow onto a ladder bridge. Bayley pulling a hinge out of her own knee brace, then walks into a KOD. Bianca looks to have it won, but then Io Sky and Dakota Kai damage control. They run in to make the save, but Bianca fights them both off, hits them with a double KOD, which is very impressive. Bayley's able to recover. She pins Bianca with a ladder, and gosh, I wonder what's going to happen with that spot. Sure enough, Belair bench presses the ladder and Bayley falls down. They really have to retire that spot. I think it's in every ladder match I've seen in the last 5 years. It needs to go. Both women up top, Bayley using Bianca's braid against her, but turnabout is hair play. Waka waka. One more KOD, this time with Bayley holding a piece of ladder, so a big rough landing. Belair climbs and grabs the belt to win and retain. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I thought this is a hell of a match with these two. I loved the risks they took with the ladders here. I thought it was far better than the SmackDown Women's Championship match for sure. Bianca is a total star. They are giving her, it feels very much like a John Cena push, it feels at this point, where she's not losing very much at all this year, and she's fighting all these odds. She was able to beat 3 women by herself in this ladder match, for instance, and the crowd's here for it. That's the thing. You can have the John Cena push, but if people reject it, it doesn't feel fine, it doesn't feel good. But to see Bianca have this kind of push, this kind of portrayal, and it looked convincing, it looks like they're not trying to force it, and the crowd is digging it, then it's working. There's some random cell phone footage of a white rabbit outside the arena earlier. Who got him out of the barroom brawl? Then it's time for the I Quit match as Edge takes on Finn Balor of Judgment Day. Finn wearing what looks to be Karrion Kross's old mask before he got released. It's a ladder era Edge match, which means it's going to run a little long. and it might get a little dry at times, but this match is actually pretty good. They do some leg submissions, fighting their way to the outside. There's attacks on the announce table, Edge driving Finn through the barricade at one point. They fight in the crowd. Edge grabs a hockey stick from out of nowhere. On the kickoff show set, he's got Finn in the crossface with a stick assist. They fight in the upper deck. Edge going for like a spear or something, but then he ends up crotching himself on the railing there. Michael Cole at this moment brings up the Sandman on commentary, but honestly, I was thinking more Samoa Joe. Back in the ring, Finn wallops Edge with the chair, Edge refusing to quit. Edge has got Finn in the educator, and Finn sounds like he's about to say I quit, but then the rest of Judgment Day comes in. Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, Edge topples them all. Edge goes for the kill, but then Rhea Ripley handcuffing Edge to one of the ring ropes. That allows Edge to get beat down a lot, but then out comes Rey Mysterio coming in to make the save. Dominic decks his own father off the apron. Even during a beatdown by his son, Rey can't stop messing with his mask. Beth Phoenix comes in and starts beating everyone up with a kendo stick. We get the face-off with her and Rhea, which gets this massive pop. It's one of the biggest crowd noises of the entire show, is this moment here before Rhea Ripley and Beth Phoenix start going to blows. So they fight for a bit. Beth freeing her husband from the handcuffs, and he goes nuts. Big dick kick city to Dominic. Edge with many spears. Rhea hitting Beth with the brass knuckles. The baddies take over. Finn hits a whole lot of coup de gracies. They tell Edge it's his last chance. Edge says go to hell. They threaten to concerto Beth Phoenix, and Edge finally relents, says he quits, and the heels are like, psych, hits Beth with the concerto anyway. But the match is already over. Finn Balor has won. I give this one 4 stars out of 5. Yeah, the match was a little long. All Edge matches these days seem to be, but I mean, when there's only 6 matches on a 3-hour show, you gotta do what you gotta do. Some match is gonna be the longest of the night out of all those. But I think the story itself was amazing. I mean, the way they kind of wove through that in the match itself, and then near the end, when Judgment Day gets involved, Beth Phoenix gets involved, it didn't feel clunky or overbooked. It just felt like it was part of a big story involving all these moving parts. And the emotion you saw with Edge and Beth, and just the evilness of the Judgment Day and Rhea Ripley, it's fantastic stuff. I think it's funny because a few months ago I was like, why is Judgment Day? Why are they here? I hate this group. But they have done such a dramatic turnaround. And all it took was them losing Edge, That was the one thing I didn't like, was Edge's heel turn this year and being all evil and dark and mysterious. That made no sense to me. It didn't jive with me. So then Edge being kicked out, probably the best thing that could have happened to him, because as a reborn babyface, as confusing as that path has been in 2022, it works, and the fans took him back pretty quickly, and I think this makes a lot more sense than whatever was going to happen with Edge in the original Judgment Day. Backstage, Miz is outside Triple H's office when Gritty shows up again. Miz beats him up, but then Dexter Lumis appears, putting him in the silence. Dexter helps Gritty up, who gives Miz one final kick. I was kind of expecting Lumis to be the guy under the Gritty hood, but it is what it is. Main event time, it's the Fight Pit match as Matt Riddle takes on Seth F. Rollins with MMA legend Daniel Cormier as the special guest referee. All I can say is, finally, redemption and validation for the Lion's Den match. I gotta say, I love the Fight Pit since I saw it in NXT. I felt that it was a great spiritual successor to the Lion's Den, which was a match I always had a soft spot in my heart for. So to see that kind of match type finally get its due and get that main event spot in a pay-per-view, mwah! Also, I thought it was a good get by WWE to get Daniel Cormier in this thing as the referee. One final bit of hype and oomph and a touch of legitimacy added to this matchup, considering Riddle's background in mixed martial arts as well. When the pit is lowered, it casts this giant shadow in the middle of the ring, which I found very distracting at times. Some stuff early on between Cormier and the wrestlers. There's some incidental contact between each of them, and Cormier giving them the business each time. Seth throwing Riddle into the cage multiple times, hitting the frog splash off the wall. Matt comes back, hits an RKO. Seth with a stomp, but Cormier takes forever to start counting for some reason. Rollins goes the catwalk. Riddle goes up after him. They're fighting up there. Buckle bomb in the corner. Pedigree on the catwalk. Rollins goes for a stomp, but he takes an RKO instead. He slumps down, lands back in the ring. That sets him up for Riddle to hit a giant senton off the catwalk back into the ring. Riddle with the triangle choke locked in. Seth finally taps after much struggling, and Riddle wins this matchup here. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. This was a great use of the environment by these two. It was very physical. Like I said, I love the Fight Pit concept, and I think that they went to a very good place here. I think that Cormier as the ref it didn't distract too much from the match itself. I think he more or less had a good place there. And yeah, I think the work by Rollins and Riddle has been great the last several months. months, and if this is the blow-off to their big personal rivalry, then I think this is a great fitting end to it, because I mean, these guys went about all out as you can get. Riddle celebrating on stage, we get the corner bug, you think this is the end of the show, but then the lights cut off. We get the whole world in his hands song, we get these big shots of people in the crowd standing there dressed as living versions of the Firefly Funhouse puppets. They're all here, and they've come to life, and there's someone there dressed as the Fiend as well, but that's a bit of a red herring. We see inside the old Firefly Funhouse, which has been just covered in dust and cobwebs. All the puppets are laying there, just not being used. Then we go back live, and Bray Wyatt shows up like we all thought he would, and my God, that crowd reaction. You couldn't even hear Bray. I said it earlier in the review, and I'll say it again. The marketing and the build to this payoff was some of the best that I think WWE has ever done, and the payoff here was tremendous. Again, everyone and their mom knew it was going to be Bray Wyatt. Anyone who was trying to speculate or theorize that the White Rabbit was somebody else was just doing it for the sake of, well, having a backup plan. Because, I mean, from the very first White Rabbit video I saw, it seemed pretty obvious it was going to be Bray Wyatt. So, but again, the fact that everyone knew it was going to be Bray clearly didn't matter, because if just knowing ahead of time what the payoff was going to be is enough for something to be ruined, like if you're spoiled, like, then everyone in Philadelphia was spoiled basically, because they all kind of knew it was coming and they still loved it. It was just one of those things where even if the ending is predictable, the journey of how you get there is what matters. And then that leads to a good payoff. And this was an incredible payoff. Like, it got so many people talking about it, so many people speculating about it, and the fact that it happened and we saw it and it was exactly how people predicted for the most part was, I thought it was incredible. And so where Bray is going to go from here, again, it's like, hey, this is a great comeback, a great story is the return of Bray Wyatt, but then what do you do with him? Can Triple H really wrangle this incredibly creative wrestler in Bray Wyatt? Can Triple H do what Vince McMahon failed to do and allow him to really spread his wings and be this creative force that he's clearly been wanting to be for a long time? Will these two work together in Bray's vision? Because if they can't, then we're going to get kind of a repeat of what The Fiend was, where it was all this start and stop. Oh, a lot of good stuff in theory, but then when they execute things, oh, the matches aren't quite as good. And oh, why is this character doing that? And I really, really hope we don't get that with this new incarnation of Bray. We've seen so much potential and so many false starts and so many moments where they think they almost have it, and then for whatever reason they take it away. And it's just like that was the relationship, though, with Bray Wyatt and Vince McMahon. Hopefully now I can only speculate and hope and wish that it's not going to be like that. And if they're sinking this much time and energy into all the White Rabbit mystique and the build and the QR codes, clearly they see something in this and they want to go all the way with it. So my line of thinking is, they seem to want to do that, but how soon might it be before, something changes, something turns? You really don't want to see that happening here. I'm very curious to see where Bray Wyatt, unshackled, can go from here. Will Triple H allow him to be? Will it match that vision? Will the vision work? Will it be good? Will it get over? I guess that's, at this point, all speculation at this point, but either way, I'm super excited that Bray is back, and I think sky's the limit. My grade for Extreme Rules 2022 is an A-. I thought, except for a couple of matches which weren't that great, the rest of this show on the whole I thought was really strong. There's a lot of great action in many of those matches. The Donnybrook match in the opener was incredible. The ladder match was great. The fight pit match was great. And again, the payoff with Bray Wyatt. It was something we all saw coming, but it was executed about as well as you could get. And the crowd, my God, the Philadelphia crowd, they were there for the whole show from beginning to end and really helped elevate this event. I mean, for a B show, as Extreme Rules is, you know, I thought it was really strong. The fact that this was an Extreme Rules where all the matches had stipulations, wow, what a breath of fresh air. They actually honor the spirit of the name of the show and have every match have some meaning to it with the stipulation. So again, I think that Triple H and this new era of WWE, they are rewarding the fans for their patience, and I think this show is a very good indication of that. But what did you think of the show, folks? What do you think of Bray Wyatt's big return? Where do you think he goes from here? I really want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Stay tuned this Wednesday for my They Live movie review, and of course, you can catch all the excitement by subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell for the notifications if you haven't already. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.